So we are a fast process and we miss people. But I know a lot of organizations are like, well, and then we kind of get to it. And there's good reason. People are overloaded, but nobody, that's not said. There's plenty of people who are still having, there's people you can hire, but this is a great time to be trying to be a DevRel. It's a really hard time to be hiring a DevRel.
Welcome, fellow avocados, to Developer Advocast, a podcast where we learn how the proverbial guacamole is made directly from some of the most prolific dev advocates around. My name is Jeremy Hess, head of DevRel at Achilles.io.
And since you've already heard me, I'm Sharon Zisman, the bane of Jeremy's existence and his jokes. I like to call myself the chief manual reader at rtfm-based.dev. And we plan to bring you every 2 to 3 weeks new episodes, and we'll be interviewing some awesome folks. We'll be joking around because that's what me and Jeremy do. And, bringing, really great topics that we want to talk about in the DevRel sphere.
We hope that you subscribe on Apple or Spotify, and please give us a 5-star rating. Here we go.
Here goes nothing. Wesley kind of spoke about this, but about DevRels often being kind of perceived as multidisciplinary heroes. You guys talked about that in it's perceived they can do, vision and strategy and planning and execution and beyond everything. And it's interesting. I obviously, Matty said this also, many roles kind of have this crazy laundry list of mismanaged expectations, and they kind of catch all. So Matty, I've seen you historically post very well-crafted, kind of very highly targeted roles to kind of the expertise that you're looking, to gain when you're hiring developer advocates. Because I remember you had one that was primarily focused on content, a content expert. I just wanted to kind of get your take on how this helped you in hiring processes, or did you feel like it eventually excluded?
The funny thing is we still never actually hired anybody under that role, as it worked out. But we did. It did help. We did some other changes internally that made that not as big of a deal. So I don't want to say it was a fail. And we moved things around. But what that does bring to mind is when you're, it's very job postings are cheap. Some are cheaper than others, but it can really be, if you're hiring for one particular headcount, so to speak, or not headcount, but maybe inside your company, it might be called developer advocate, but you're sort of trying to create this, Voltron team. While yes, really at the end of the day, everybody on your team has the title developer advocate, but having a job posting for developer advocate, written content, developer advocate, community focus, whatever, because that does a couple things. It lets you avoid that laundry list, because part of why that laundry list happens, some of it is the stuff that Wesley talked about, which was I just don't know, so I'm going to ask for everything. But here's the real thing that most people don't realize. First of all, I've said before, one of my tropes is DevRel contains multitudes. And the other thing along those lines is your DevRel team does not scale horizontally, which means you need T-shaped people, you need or M-shaped or whatever letter we're talking about. That said, your team, so here's what ends up happening, right? And the same thing happens in engineering, and this is why it happens. The team needs all those skills. It ain't going to be one person doing it. So you're listing all those things because you're not actually expecting one person. Some of you are expecting one person, but even being very generous, you actually aren't thinking you're going to have all of this, but I need you to have some of it. So you can accomplish this a couple of ways. One way is you can do here's, we would like you to have some of these things, right? And that's also not that hard to do, people, to just say even self-identify that this is a long list. We by no means, and in fact, at this point, it's such a trope to have these ridiculous lists that you could even have some fun with it and say, don't worry, we don't expect you to have all of this. We'd like you to have some of it, and tell us which is your thing. Or the other side of that is then you can target it more. You can say okay, of that laundry list, I know that my Voltron team, I need for my DevRel team, I need a red lion that's really good at writing tutorials, and I need a black lion that's really good at doing speaking, and I need a yellow lion that's really good at, I don't know, whatever else we do in this job. And then you could write all those, but at the end of the day, they're still for the same head or the same job rec. And most you can do that. This even goes back to when I was hiring. I used to A/B test on Career Builder and stuff. I'd have the exact same job and I'd write 3 different job posts that looked very different for the same job, because it let me see like what, because it would target for different kinds of people, right? To sort of see, because
I had no idea that was done. Now you've just like kind of revealed this whole world to me of like
it's not
testing job descriptions. That's interesting.
Well, it could work in 2 ways. One is I did it at first because it was my way of seeing like what job description was the better one that I wrote. But then it turned into like, because different people will respond in different ways, right? This is sort of even across like gender, right? Men and women tend to do that both ways. So you almost want to write both of those superlatives,
the ninjas and the
so it's almost
masters and the gurus. So yeah,
everybody should hate those. Yes,
never apply to a job like that.
So don't be afraid to like list multiple, even if it's for one thing. I think that's really important. I think, but what is really the key of that is you're not going to. It's also like Wesley said, there's this sort of like, what do we even mean by that? So if you can't say the work that you want to have being done, if you can't describe that, then you have no business hiring anybody yet, right? And so that actually helps you write that job description, because a job description is literally what work are you going to do? And if you look at that, this is the other thing too. Hiring managers rarely do this. Here's my challenge to you, person writing the job description. Would you freaking apply for that job? Because I'm pretty sure some of these ridiculous job descriptions that people write, if they were on the other side, they'd be like, they honest
Not
to God. And I
there.
bet I've done it. I bet all of us who've written a job description on here that we are all very good at saying the right way to do it. We have probably all written a bad one at some point and not been aware of it and never sat back to look at it through the lens of, because also think about this, and then I'll stop talking for a minute. How many different iterations and fingers in the pie go through a job description, right? Wesley's the hiring manager. He starts to write it, but then, Jeremy's on the team and they ask Jeremy to put his 2 cents in. And Sharon is the recruiter and she has certain legal things that have to go in. And then by the time it gets posted, it doesn't look like anything that Wesley wrote anymore, right? So
and it has rejection.
It will not occur to Wesley to go back and look at it again. That's sort of the thing. So I'm always saying, again, hiring manager, go look at what's actually on your website, because it might not be what you wrote.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've seen that.
I never wrote a bad description for a job description because I copy it from the best. So.
And Wesley said that it's like everybody just like hobbles a little bit of from here and there, and you're like, that looks good. Like
when you know where to look,
kind of code, same idea. Like
nice.
Let me just cobble that together. That looks
reference
good.
not found.
Looking good.
It's not.
One last thought on job descriptions that just occurred to me. We feel like we always remember that, it's a 2-way street about the candidate and the company. And job descriptions either will have a mix of like, here's why we're amazing and we have unlimited PTO and ping pong tables and all this shit. And here's the 3 billion things you need to be good at. And rarely does it give a really good example of what you're actually going to do as the job. And it will be very vague. And I think it's really important because if you can't quantify and be explicit about what that job is, then you probably aren't ready to hire somebody. And if it's really vague, like your responsibilities will include expanding our brand across the community. What does that mean? Give me something like you will write blog posts. You will write code examples in these 4 programming languages. You will be expected to travel and give talks on main stages or whatever. Like, tell me what the job is, because we tend to wrap it into the very theoretical, right? The outcomes. The outcomes are great. Tell me the outcomes, because that tells me you understand outcomes. But also, the only time it's okay to be activity oriented in DevRel is in the job description, right? It's not just about outcomes. Actually, tell me what you're going to expect me to do.
Yeah, goals in SMART format with guard bands to understand what happens if you don't meet those goals. Like if it's understood that those are flexible or are those hard, When you get to the end of your evaluation period and you didn't meet these goals that were predefined, are there things that happen to mitigate that lack of success? Like, were you not given enough resources? Were you not given enough planning? And is it that okay, or will you get fired? So certainty in what you're needing to do and how you'll be evaluated is extremely important as well.
That might be a little more specific than the job description needs, but
I'm just saying the people who
in general, yes,
doing this.
I was just saying, I would love to see that. Would be an amazing job description. Yes.
Yeah.
I have one thought. I don't know where we're at, but there was one thing. Again, when you talk about like how hiring is different, and I think this is true of the market right now, but across tech in general, but DevRel really specifically, don't sleep on these candidates.
Yes.
Because it is a very hot market for DevRel. Nobody is available for very long. So you need to look at your process. And if it takes weeks for your first round recruiter to get back to someone, you aren't getting anybody. Right.
Yes.
And I've seen this in a lot of within my organ, and this is not anything negative about, this is just the process. I'm just saying, like, we have a fast process where I'm at, and people they'll come in, they'll reach out to me. They'll be like, Matty, I totally want to come work at Pulumi. I'm like, awesome. Here's my referral link. Get it in there. And I'll reach out to a recruiter. I'm like, ping Sharon, like she's ready to go and everything. And by the time it happens, Sharon is texting me and going, okay, I have 3 offers.
Yeah.
Right. So we are a fast process and we miss people. But I know a lot of organizations are like, well, and then we kind of get to it. And there's good reason. People are overloaded, but that's not said. There's plenty of people who are still there's people you can hire, but this is a great time to be trying to be a DevRel. It's a really hard time to be hiring a DevRel because it's so. That said, too, keep that in mind with your process. It's not only just how slow are you on things, but if you're going to go through like these rigorous, like, okay, you have to do a day-long loop and you have to do all this and do all this other stuff. Besides the fact that there's people who just won't do it, that all takes time. And you know what? Here's the thing too, because we aren't all in person now. Interview loops used to be one day because you'd go to the office, you'd sit down, just like I talked about. What now? I mean, what is it? It probably, if you're going to interview with 5 people in a company, that's probably over the course of at least a week, if not longer, because now they're interspersing you or whatever. So this process we've gotten distributed is great. It's actually made the hiring process slower, I think, because not everybody's in the office. By the way, none of this is a reason for return to the office. Don't do it. But,
I would say that that's true. As a consultant, right? I'm doing DevRel as a service. I found that there are companies that are so slow to kind of like get back and kind of understand what they need, and they drag their feet. And it's like, oh, I'm full capacity. There's so much need out there, and there's so many companies that need DevRel, and they're not managing. They're struggling to hire DevRel, so they're outsourcing the capacity until they can hire. And then it's the same slow movers until they kind of get their act together and know what they need, and they craft their plan, and they send you their contract. And it's like, all right, I'm out of time, folks. It's like, so it's 100%. It's true, both on the HR side and other aspects of DevRel. It's very, very fast moving right now.
Sharon, running out of time. One last question. Pick it. Good luck choosing.
Yours. Go for it. I'm on the blabbermouth. I always
no. I mean, there's a lot of questions to choose from here. I mean, we got already a lot of tips and ideas on how to write the right description and what makes it the wrong description. So that's great. What about things like deciding on a role and what to call it? Like Matty, you were formerly a DevOps advocate, right? So how do you decide sort of how to name the role, and what's the difference?
So there's 2 places job titles come into play, or there's 2 kinds of job titles. This isn't going to be a clever thing like lies and damn lies. There is your official job title, which is often non-negotiable, and that is used and matters only within your HR system. And then there is what you call yourself. And my take in certain cases is that second thing, who gives a shit? Let your people call yourselves what they want to call themselves. Exception is like a leveling thing. Like, I can't just decide to call myself principal and
right?
give myself but I'll give you the example. You said I was a DevOps advocate, so like that was at
CGRLO.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. At PagerDuty, we didn't really want to call ourselves developer advocates because that wasn't the kind of, we weren't really, that was just not our jam. But everybody on my team, we all had, like, internally, our internal title was developer evangelist, developer evangelist 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. That's what it said in the HR system. Fine, whatnot. But externally, I was a DevOps advocate. I had people on my team that were community advocates. We had developer advocates, and it was whatever. I also found that my title would change depending on who I was talking to, and it was whatever title was necessary to get them to listen. So if I was talking to executives and stuff, all of a sudden I became a global DevOps advocate or something like that, right? Inflate your title if that's what's necessary. So what you talk about. Now, that said, there's reasons I alluded to the evangelist. I'll tell you, we've kind of, the word evangelist as our role has come out of favor, and for good reason, for two good reasons. One is it's a very colonizer term. It's a very overloaded term. But even if besides that, which is enough, that's enough. But to me, evangelism is one way. Advocacy is full duplex. It's bi-directional, right? Mm-hmm. So I always say that as an advocate, I advocate to and for the community, right? Mm-hmm. But as far as, again, from the title, the external title, like what you list, I'll tell you something. You go look at the Pulumi careers page. Like we actually don't have any open roles on DevRel right now, but like half of those were made up titles, right? They weren't what your title would be if you worked here. Like you would be a developer advocate. That's what we call ourselves. But we were content engineer. We were whatever. So it's okay in my mind. It's whatever helps you communicate what it is you do.
I also think evangelist doesn't feel like it's telling you the whole story. It's only telling you the good story, which is just part of the truth and part of the information that someone needs to actually make a really good decision.
Continue. I feel like this is that's a smart thread. I like that.
Well, it's more of like, if
I'm listening, I'm intrigued.
So if you look at like Amazon and something that you want to buy has 5 stars, you might be skeptical about like, this can't be the right thing for everybody. And especially in when we're talking about tech and we're talking about tools, one size does not fit all. And so there needs to be a caveat about who or what is not a good fit for your organization or for your stack, or if it's not good for your workflow. All this stuff needs to be taken into account. And so if you're the bright and shiny thing in all cases, then you know that there's a lot of manure attached to that penny. So you want to kind of like make sure you say, this is not only what we're good at doing, but what we're not good at doing and how we fall down in some cases. So people don't hit those cases where they hear or fall for this song of how amazing this product is and then try to integrate it. And then they spend half the time like troubleshooting, patching, or kind of like duct taping this into what they're doing. And all along, you look at some thread and everyone knew about this. It's not something that's going to be fixed. It's not something that's going to be designed around. This is a known issue. And I think if there are known issues, that also needs to be in the same packaging as advantages of a product, so that you not only just say the message of what your product does and who's it for, but you want to self-select or let people self-select saying, no, that's not for me, and also turn away.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I like that. That's really smart. Wow, so much wisdom unpacked in this show, and a lot of really.
That's a lot of something.
A lot of experience, that's for sure. Good, bad, and yeah, a lot of really helpful tips, really smart things about how to like kind of think about hiring, crafting really good job descriptions, being more explicit about the things that are required and things that are elective. And really, really great episode. Thank you both so much for all of this and sharing from your wealth of experience and maybe helping others that are just getting started on this journey to not have to fall through those kind of pitfalls that you fell into. And yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And any excuse I get to sit and talk to Wesley and learn from him, I'll take. So
Yes.
and I didn't even have to listen to the podcast this time. This time I got to
Other way around, Maddie.
Yeah,
Other way
yeah,
around.
Be the podcast.
That's right.
That's fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. Had a wonderful time. And we will hopefully see you again soon. And hopefully Tel Aviv, DevOps
Tel
Days
Aviv awaits,
2022. You never know.
I still need to make my way to Chicago. Never been.
September 21st and 22nd, DevOps Day, Chicago.
It's a nice one.
Gotta get out there.
Okay.
Other
Wesley
last
B3 on
little
Twitter.
That is.
Oh, yes.
Are we
Shout
still
outs. Go for it. Yeah, we're still running. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Oh, this wasn't shout outs. This was just me saying this is the lesson I learned. Another podcast lesson is this is why you need a tagline as much as it'll be annoying because you don't know how to end.
You don't know how to end. It's true.
We had very early on, like, I don't know, when Trevor and I had just started doing Arrested DevOps for like, we were a few months into it. We got on like a Google Hangout with like J. Paul Reed and Nathan Harvey and just a couple other people that had been doing like DevOps podcasts just to sort of talk about process. And that's where Nathan said, he's like, you have to have a tagline. And he's like, with the Food Fight show, he said, I hate it. Like I jokingly said once, hey chefs, keep it hot. And he's like, now I've had to say it 100 times, but we have the thing. And that's where Paul Reed is the one who came up with, there's always DevOps in the banana stand. But that way we know how to end an episode, right?
That's
and I run into this on like my Twitch stream. I'm always like,
guacamole.
now I'm done. I don't know what to say. And so
true. Yeah.
And it's as easy. I just say, see you on the internets.
And on that thought, holy guacamole.
Holy guacamole. We
There
like
it
it. Yeah,
I'm telling you, now you're going to do that every time. And it's going to be years from now on this podcast.
Yes,
and it's going to be part of history was this episode is when you came up with that.
This was fantastic. Thank you all so much.
Holy guacamole.
Holy guacamole.
Guacamole.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for sticking around with us for season 1 of the Developer Advocast. We had a fantastic time, and we hope you had a blast and learned something too. We look forward to continuing with season 2 right after the summer months, so hopefully September or October time. And we hope that you'll join us, and please let us know what you think of the show so far. And we look forward to serving up some more episodes with some fantastic advocates coming right up.